Welcome back to Forbidden Knowledge News. I'm your host, Chris Matthew. Today my guest is Brandon Williams. First, a couple of announcements. Our website is forbiddenknowledge.news. That's the home of the Forbidden Knowledge Network, where you find some of your favorite podcasts featured. Forbidden Knowledge News is always available on Rokfin, Odyssey, Rumble, and all podcast platforms. Our social media is Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, and Rokfin is where you get our premium content. The best thing about that is you get all the premium content from every creator on Rokfin, and it's only $15 a month. You just go to rokfin.com/FKN Plus to sign up, or click the link in the description. All our links are right there in the description. Today I want to welcome Brandon Williams. He is a state national of California, author, common law lawyer, and founder of the Amnesty Coalition, which is a group that aims to address the slave state framework that is created by webs of legal contracts and documents like birth certificates, social security cards, and the U.S. citizen fraud system. After a successful career in sales and marketing, he is now devoting his full-time work to research and experimentation in becoming a state national. Brandon, welcome. How you doing?
Good, man. Thank you.
Hey, man, welcome. It's great to have you. I've been looking forward to it. Today, we're going to be discussing a way to legally, not pay taxes, to legally avoid fines and to disconnect from your United States citizenship and declare national status, which is basically means no longer acting as a citizen of any government and owing no obligations to the government beyond keeping the peace and reporting crimes. This is very powerful information, especially for those in this community looking for ways to quote-unquote escape the matrix. So before we get into this, I love this. Tell us a little bit more about yourself, your background, and what led you to discover this information.
I took over a landscaping company, and a government agency decided they wanted to just kind of stroll up on one of my my job sites and took up a very large bill and come after me for it. And I went to some lawyers and some accountants because I have a lot of friends who lawyers and accountants and stuff like that, and they were like, "Oh, just make a payment plan. Just make a payment plan." And I'm sitting here thinking, well, first off, I can't make a payment plan. And second off, why does this agency have the right to just show up on one of my job sites and cook up some weird ass bill that I have to then make a payment plan for? That sounds like the mafia or something. You know what I mean? And so I said, I'm not gonna pay this. And not only am I not gonna pay it, but I'm gonna figure out something and fight back against this tyranny. This is ridiculous, And then one thing led to the next. And once I found out that the definition of the term United States means just the District of Columbia only, and not any of the other states or the 50 states of the Union, I got pretty pissed off about it. And as soon as I found out that one piece of information, that was it, man. I was completely focused in. I was completely locked in. I was like, that one piece of information became the crux of everything I've ever done ever since. And it just keeps going. And I have absolutely no idea when it's going to end. The more doors I open, it just seems like there's just more doors. So I'm sure at some point I will reach the end of the labyrinth. But as of right now, it's just never ending. And I'm trying to just piece it all together. The definition of the term United States, it's defined in 28 United States Code, Title 28, Section 3002, subsection 15, definition A. So if you go to Google and you type in 15 space USC, which stands for United States Code, space 3002, you can actually do this right now, Chris, and then I'll just have you read it off. I think that would be the best way to do it. Scroll down to section number 15 and then read that little part. And then
It says United States means a federal corporation, an agency, department, commission, board, or other entity of the United States.
right. So United States means a federal corporation, right? Now, if you want to open up another window for Google or whatever, or DuckDuckGo, and type in UCC space 9-307. Now, when you go to that one, scroll down to section H and then read that entire section. It's just a few words. Read that out loud for your audience. This is really mind-blowing.
Section H, the United States is located in the District of Columbia.
There you go. So
Now,
whenever you have...
What does this mean basically for us citizens? How does that change the laws for us, basically?
Every single governmental form, including all tax forms, when they ask you, are you in the United States? Are you a resident of the United States? Are you domiciled in the United States? Do you live in the United States? Are you working in the United States? Did you make any money from the United States? Did you do any commerce with the United States? Anything they're asking you, anywhere, including on tax forms, they're asking you the District of Columbia only and exclusively. They are not asking you in the 50 states of the Union. If I'm in California and I'm doing work with New Mexico or Montana or any other place that's not the District of Columbia, when they ask me, are you in the United States or did you make any money from the United States? The answer to that question is no. And the answer to how much money did you make in the United States? The answer to that question is zero. The states in the United States are it's a totally different thing. The United States Code, the entire code that we operate our entire country off of, only applies to the District of Columbia. United States Code, the USC, is a code for United States, which by definition is only the District of Columbia. So the big mistake, the big matrix that we're living in, it's really simple. You don't even need to do anything. You just need to realize this one fucking point, is that we're not in the District of Columbia. Thus, the entire United States Code has absolutely nothing to do with you. Do you know what is contained inside the United States Code?
What's that?
The entire Internal Revenue Code, the whole thing, is in the USC. It's titled 26, which is a section. It's the 26th section of the United States Code. Okay. Now, the definition of the term United States citizen is you have to clear up the word citizen in Black's Law Dictionary, and you realize it's a person who essentially openly admits that they're in an area and they've accepted whatever area that they're in as like senior to them in exchange for protections of their rights and privileges. Okay. So the term United States citizen means a citizen of the legal definition of United States, which is the District of Columbia. So a U.S. citizen lives in the District of Columbia, accepts the private for-profit federal corporation as its king in exchange for private rights and privileges granted by that king onto the citizen. You do not live in the United States Union. You do not have a constitution. You do not have a state constitution or the United States Constitution. You do not have a Bill of Rights. You live basically in a corporate zone, and you're a corporate officer of a completely foreign world. That's what the definition of the word or the term United States actually means. United States citizen.
Well, I think another good place to start would be, what does our Social Security numbers actually mean for us?
So the Social Security number is an employee number, and it's your employee number as a voluntary employee of the federal corporation. So it's basically a number that identifies you as an employee because you've told them that you live in the District of Columbia and you work for them as a citizen of their world.
Right on. Right
So
on.
so basically what you're doing with all the stuff that I teach and all the stuff that I'm researching is you're changing your status in relation to this foreign world. You're moving out of the District of Columbia and you're moving back onto the actual landmass of the original state republic area of wherever you live. This sounds completely retarded and insane because it is. Okay. So I live on the original landmass of California. Now the other problem is that state of California, when you see the word state is capitalized or all the letters are in all capital letters, that's actually a corporation. So when you say I live in state of California, I don't live in state of California because state of California is a corporate entity. And that corporate entity is located in the District of Columbia.
Right
So if you
on.
see anything on any papers, like for example, voter registration, and it asks you, are you a resident of state of California? Well, that's one of the landmines that people fall in that make you a U.S. citizen. It makes you you now live in legally. You now live in the Washington D.C. You live in the District of Columbia. So you don't want to sign anything or do anything that says that you live in the state of New York or state of New Jersey or state of any of that shit. So I just cross it out on any of the forms and I put, original land. I live on the original land of what's called the de jure California, which is the original non-incorporated California, right? So I don't pay any state tax. I don't pay any federal tax. I don't pay any city tax. I don't pay none of that shit. Because the only reason why you have to pay state tax in California or any other state is because you've signed to the fact that you're a resident of this corporate world called state of California. I don't live in state of California. I live in California. They're two entirely different locations.
Now, have you done any research as to how this whole basically corporate slave system was originally set up and formed?
Yeah, it was set up in 1871, and you can look up the Organic Act of 1871. And there's a buddy of mine, actually, his name is Joe Lustica, and he has a Rumble channel. And he just recently released a video on the Organic Act of 1871, and he reads a lot of it and breaks it down in really simple terms. And I think it'd be a great place for people to look to start using that video by Joe Lustica on his channel as a way of sort of maybe getting initiated with how did all this get started in 1871, because that is a really good place to start. But basically 1871, that time period right after the Civil War during the Reconstruction, we swapped from an original law-based system to a corporate statute-based system. And during that time, before 1871, there was only one type of I want to say the right word here, nationality. It was nationality at that point. And then at that point, on the 14th Amendment, it got split into two choices. You could either have a nationality or you could have a citizenship. So if someone lived in the actual states of the Union that we know of as the states, that would be a nationality. Whereas if you wanted to become a federal corporate citizen, that was called citizenship. And then over the years, we've lost track of the various definitions of these terms. So now everybody just thinks that U.S. citizen is it, and that's just what we are, and they think that has something to do with the 50 states of the Union. It has absolutely nothing to do with the 50 states of the Union at all whatsoever. Nothing. The 50 states of the Union, as per the United States Code, are actually considered foreign governments, foreign entities, like no different than France or Italy compared to Washington, D.C. Washington, D.C. is a foreign government, a foreign land, a foreign world from the 50 states of America.
Now, would there be different steps that we would have to take to avoid federal versus state taxes?
It's really not that complex. I teach how to do all of that in my free contract killer course. You want to find all the points that you're tied into being a U.S. citizen, and then simply either destroy the contract, eliminate the contract, or change the contract in a way to where you no longer are physically located in the legal world in the District of Columbia. Once you do that, and once you learn some of these basic terms like state of California, and you just avoid signing documents that state these kind of things, because they're always trying to trick you into signing the fact that you live in their zones, because once you sign documentation that states that you live in their zones, then now they can legally tax you. It's all locational jurisdiction based, right? So if I don't live in Texas, everyone would agree I wouldn't pay Texas state tax. It's that simple, right? Same thing on all this stuff, right? So when they ask you a question on a form and you don't know the definition of that question, you can actually just redefine the word at the top of the page with an ink pen and then sign the form using the definition that you created. Or you can just cross it out and you can write whatever the fuck you want. Now, they might not accept it. Don't get me wrong. But a lot of times they do. Plus, there's a lot of different ways that you can sign these forms. I teach you all about signatures, and there's a lot of information behind how you can sign things and that kind of thing. You can actually reserve all of your human rights when you sign any documentation by writing "without prejudice" above the signature. And if anybody who's listening wants to see the original statutes on that, it's UCC 1-308. And it's basically how to sign any documentation in a way to reserve all of your human rights. So when you write "without prejudice" above your signature, what you're saying is that I agree to do this. I agree to this contract, but I explicitly reserve all of my human rights. And if there's anything in this contract that violates my human rights in any way, it's instantaneously void and is not part of this contract. That's what you're saying when you write "without prejudice." Okay.
Now, no, go ahead. What were you gonna say?
So basically what you're learning to do in my course and with my information is you're learning how to clean up all of these contracts, because the thing is that you signed all these contracts not knowing the definitions of the words and the terms. It's that simple, right? So when you understand how locational jurisdiction works, which I teach you in the course, and you understand what the terms mean, which I teach you in the course, now you can go back in your life and clean up all of the contracts that you mistakenly signed incorrectly. And then from that point going forward, you can also make sure that you don't incorrectly fill out any documentation from that point forward as well. Okay. And then also, like, how do you protect yourself? Well, like I said, you protect yourself by you can literally just write the definitions of words or redefine words as you see fit at the top of any pages that you would like to do so. It's not that complicated, right? So let's say, for example, I was going to sign for voter registration. In the free course that I have, I pretty much say, I canceled voter registration because they want you to sign that you're a resident of state of California, which is a corporate entity, and I don't live there. But if I were to write at the top of the piece of paper, the word novation means a change in a contract, right? So I just write the word novation, and then I put definition of state of California is changed to, the original de jure landmass, non-incorporated state of California. And then I just leave that there. And then I could even put maybe like a little arrow that comes up from the word state of California up to the new novation definition. And then I sign it. Now I'm no longer contracting into the matrix. I've actually just completely disarmed their ability to place me locationally in the District of Columbia.
Wow, that's so interesting.
Yeah, so it's pretty easy. Or you could just cross out state of California and just put original, de jure landmass of California. Or you could just put California in with a capital C and then lowercase remaining letters. There's a lot of things you could do. It's up to you, however you want to do it. And if you send it in and they don't accept it, make another one. Send it in again. Someone else will get it. You know what I mean? If they don't take it, make another one. Send it in. I mean, when you really start to understand all of this, it does become pretty fun. I have to admit, I have a blast. I mean, this is like I'm in Disneyland every day with this
Oh
shit.
man,
So
yeah, I'm
yeah.
all about learning about this. Now, before we get into more aspects of your course and what you're teaching people, maybe we could help them understand where our tax money's really going, because people are under the false pretense that, yeah, they're going to help build our roads and our schools and help the children and all this bullshit. But according to what you've learned, where do you see most of our tax money going?
So this is a really good question. The answer to the question is very, very clear. So all of our money is printed from the Federal Reserve at interest. I imagine almost all your listeners probably already know that. Am I right? Am I wrong on that? Am I right? I'm
I'm
right.
pretty
Yeah,
sure, yeah.
that's what I figured. Now, all taxation only goes towards the interest payment on the loan. There is no principal payment. Now, taxation works in a way where they're being very, very tricky because, yes, after the payment of the interest, if there was any money left over, that money would logically go toward all of these things that we're talking about, right? So they say it in a really tricky way where it's like, oh, your money's going toward all these wonderful things, but they're probably using the literal definition of the word towards. So what they're saying your money goes in the direction of these things, but never actually arrives there, would be the legal, like really literal definition that they're using in that sentence. And this is how the scam works. The scam works in ways where it's like there's always an element of deniability. Well, we said towards, you know what I mean? Like that is literally exactly how the whole thing works. So when you start to look at the definitions of words in a very, very literal way, it becomes very, very humorous because you are paying towards those things, but the money never, ever, ever arrives there. So not one penny of any tax money you'll ever pay in your entire life from the day you're born till the day you die, not one single cent will ever arrive at that location.
When we're looking at things like sales tax, is there ways to avoid that?
Yeah, sales tax again. Basically, the way all taxation works, and the reason why it keeps getting worse and worse and worse is because the whole system is a debt-based system, right? All the money is printed at interest, right? So every 70 years or whatever it is, we have a bankruptcy. America's been bankrupt multiple times. I think the first time was 1933, since the Reconstruction, right? And 1933, by the way, for your listeners, is a really wonderful place to look for a lot of things when all this kind of shifted and changed, because the 1933 bankruptcy is a massive, massive shift in how all of this worked and how all of this operated, right? That's when they took away all the gold. That's when a whole bunch of shit went down at that time period. That's when the birth certificates came around. That's when the Social Security system was put in, and that was all part of the bankruptcy. So the way that the world works is they create a debt-based system, and then automatically every single 70 years, the country has no choice but to declare bankruptcy because they're in a debt-based system. There is no human possibility that they could not be filing for bankruptcy in 70 years, right? So when they file for bankruptcy, what happens is it becomes a trust action where the country goes into a trusteeship, and the trustees, the people who manage the trust, are the bankers, right? So what they say, we'll let you continue on, but only under the following conditions. And those conditions become the shifts that they're trying to create in that country, right? So, for example, the birth certificate, for example, the Social Security number, for example, taking away all the gold. That was all stipulations during the 1933 bankruptcy, and that's how it works. They do that with all the different countries. Amazingly, it seems like it's the exact same playbook for every single country, though. That's the part that gets a little bit interesting. It's the exact same playbook. They don't change the playbook.
That is interesting. Now, you mentioned the birth certificate. I should have asked you more about the significance of that when we were talking about our Social Security number, but what is the actual significance of our birth certificates?
So ever since the gold standard was removed from the money, what props up our entire financial system is our us as individual people, and it's all of our future productivity, potential productivity, right? So it's mainly through the Social Security system and stuff like that now. It used to be gold based, and now it's more Social Security based, right? So the way it works is the private for-profit corporation known as United States, which is also known as the District of Columbia, which is also known as Washington, D.C. It's known by these things. When you say United States, it's Washington, D.C. or the District of Columbia, you're saying the exact same thing. Those three terms mean the exact same thing. Okay. So when you say that, what you're saying is you're saying a private corporate world. It's a giant corporation that's not within the 50 states of the Republic of the United States of America. It's a totally different zone, right? It's a foreign zone. That foreign zone, because every single person is signed up as a U.S. citizen, they're saying that they legally live there and they get a Social Security number, which is an employee identification number. What they're doing is they're pledging themselves as slaves to the system. Now, the way the system views this entire thing is they view it as voluntary. So it imposes an income tax on the income of every individual who is a citizen or resident of the United States. So anyone who has signed any documentation that states that they live in, reside in, or domicile in the District of Columbia, they would fit that first part, right? But when you change your citizenship to a nationality, you no longer are a citizen or resident of the United States. You are actually what's called a national of the United States. And the actual definition of what you are, as per their own codes, is you are a foreign government. So I am actually a foreign government. And there's multiple terms that they actually use to describe this particular status when you clean it up. And for all your listeners, the status that the section that goes into these statuses in a lot of really good detail, in my opinion, is 18 space USC space 112. So Title 18, Section 112. And if you go there, we're not going to get into this one a little too much. Just kind
Read
of
that one again, the whole thing.
18 USC 112. And this one is called Protection of Foreign Officials, Official Guests, and Internationally Protected Persons, right?
Yeah.
Now, once you change your citizenship as a U.S. citizen over to a nationality called a state national, like, for example, I'm a Californian. That is my actual legal title for what my nationality is. So if someone says, are you a U.S. citizen? I would say, no, I'm a Californian, which can be very confusing for most people, but that's the official way that I would say my nationality, right? Now, in this section, Title 18, Section 112, they give us 6 different terms that they call us. And these are the terms that they use for us. And they use these terms throughout the entire United States Code. They call us a foreign government. They call us a foreign official. They call us internationally protected person. They call us international organization. They call us national of the United States. And they call us official guest. Those are the 6 terms that describe once you change your citizenship to a nationality. And you can use any of them that you want. I like to use official guest because it makes me sound like I'm some kind of royalty or something. I think that's kind of cool. I use internationally protected person a lot. I really like that one a lot. And then the most common one that you're going to see in this arena almost constantly is national of the United States or state national. That's the one that everyone talks about, right? So once you convert over to this other, you convert your citizenship status to a nationality, now you're considered a completely foreign entity to the District of Columbia. And it's basically in law, essentially what you're doing is you're basically retiring as a government employee. Sounds a little bit weird, But in law, that's technically actually what's occurring at that time when you actually do these actions, right? You're saying, you know what? I'm done working for you guys and I'm moving out. It's like a breakup. You're breaking up and you're moving out. You guys live together, you're moving out and you're breaking up. And that's basically what's happening when you change your citizenship to a nationality. Okay. Now, for people who live in Washington, D.C., you can't really do any of this. And I recommend that you move as soon as possible.
Yeah. Now, realistically, how difficult or easy is it to actually get this status achieved?
Extremely, extremely, extremely easy. You file literally one article of documentation with the IRS. You go and you change your driver's license, which takes like 20 minutes. And you get a new passport. There's a lot of other things too that I go in the course, and the most important part of all this is understanding the terms and the definitions, and so that way you don't fall in the trap again later. Another thing that you're probably going to want to do is either change or get rid of your voter registration, which takes 5 minutes. It's a simple little form that just says, I want to cancel voter registration, and you put your information in it, you sign it, you mail it off. It's that easy, right? If you do still want to vote, like I said, you should fill out a new voter registration form. You should cross out or redefine that term, state of whatever state you're in, and then send it back to them. If they accept it, then they've accepted the novation, which means change in a contract. They've accepted the novation, and now you're voting, but you're not legally contracted into the system. Okay. So all in all, I mean, you're looking at maybe a few hours of work or maybe a day's worth of work. And you're looking at, maybe a few $100 for the passport. If you get the more sped up processing, you can pay to have it processed faster. If you pay for the more higher processing, then you're going to pay about $300. The stuff to fill out to send to the IRS, I teach you how to do it for free in my course. So it costs you nothing and takes about 5 minutes to fill out those forms. It's called a Form 56. And if you actually work at a job, you're going to give your employer a different type of form called a W-8-BEN form. I teach you how to fill out the Form 56 and the W-8-BEN on my free course. Most importantly, I teach you what the forms actually mean. And I teach you what you're actually doing when you fill them out. And then I teach you what it actually all means. So by the time you send it in, you actually totally understand these forms. You totally understand what you're doing, and you understand the actual statutes as to what I'm trying to have you do. You actually understand where all the different statutes are located in terms of why you're filling out these forms and that kind of thing. And when you learn all this stuff, it sounds complicated. It's really not that complicated. It really just comes down to changing the location in which you tell them you are located.
Right on. Now, you mentioned passports. I know you discussed different types of passports that you suggest people get. Is there any that you could recommend?
So I believe it's 22 CFR 51.3. Yeah, you can go ahead and pull that up. Pull up 22 CFR 51.3, and then click on Cornell, and then read Section A.
Regular passport is issued to a national of the United States.
So this is the one that you want. This is what I don't know for sure, because we can't find like 100% evidence to this effect, but I'm like pretty damn sure that this is a 5-star passport. So there's little stars in the front of the passport card on the upper part, right? And there's some discrepancy on this. We haven't like completely nailed this down, but we're pretty fucking sure. The 5 stars is the Section A, and that's the best one you're going to be able to get. It makes you a foreign diplomat, because you are technically, like we said before, you are an official guest, you are a foreign government, you are an internationally protected person, you are those 6 terms that they use to describe you in 18 USC Section 112. And this particular passport, the Section A passport, the regular passport, this is the one that officially verifies that you are that status. So you're basically a foreign diplomat. and you gain diplomatic immunity, right? So all of the statutes in the United States Code, all of the crimes and all of the different things that they can slap on you, you no longer are under any of those codes. So it gives you not an immunity to do whatever you want, but basically an immunity to all victimless crimes. So if there has to be a victim, and the state or the government cannot be the victim, there has to be a second individual party that has to actually press charges. There has to be an actual victim in order for there to be a crime. Once you change your citizenship to a nationality. Now, what does that mean? It means you can own whatever fucking gun you want. You can have all the fucking drugs you want. You can do whatever the flying fuck that you want until what you're doing encroaches on someone else's rights and that you created a victim. Once you create a victim, that diplomatic immunity ends right there very sharply. Okay. So that diplomatic immunity is actually clarified in black and white in Title 18, Section 112, that one we just looked at with all the different terms. They talk about in that section what your rights are as a national. And essentially it's, if anyone tries to stop you or do anything or detain you or fuck with you at all, and there's no victim, then the actual police officer would be committing a crime by violating Title 18, Section 112. And there's things that you can actually do to the officer for violating the law. Okay. So if they pull you over and they give you a speeding ticket, you can actually take that speeding ticket and convert it into essentially like a commercial lien, and you can actually go after the officer and take and confiscate his personal property. Okay. So it gets kind of interesting when you start to get into this stuff, right?
Well, I think that's a good segue into, you also talk about how to handle police interactions, like tickets and things like that. Maybe we could go over some of those things for the audience.
Yeah. So it's really, really simple. I teach a lot of benevolence in my course and all of my material. It's not about being an asshole. You know what I mean? Like, I know a lot of people want to do that. They want revenge or whatever the fuck they want to do, but I don't recommend that. I think the better choice is that if they call you a foreign government and you are a foreign government, and they are just as foreign to you as France or Italy or Sweden or Russia, then just fucking treat them like they're a fucking foreign government, like France or Italy or China or Sweden. I mean, I think it's so fucking simple. You know what I mean? Right. Basically, what the police are by definition is they are a private security force for the District of Columbia. So the way it works in law is if you're driving around in California and they pull you over and you're signed up as a U.S. citizen and everything on all your paperwork says U.S. citizen, U.S. citizen, U.S. citizen, and you're paying taxes and you're doing all these things, they assume that you live in the District of Columbia, you operate in the District of Columbia, and you're just over here in California just driving around because you're maybe off for a few days or something like that. That's how it works in the law world, right? So when the police pull you over, they're operating as though you're still in the District of Columbia and you've already acquiesced to their jurisdiction from all your paperwork and your taxes. When you clean all this shit up, what happens is when they pull you over, it's as if you're in like a different world than they are. They don't have any jurisdiction over you. They don't have any ability to do anything with you. Now, the problem where it gets a little more complicated is that in the law of contracts are senior to law. And what that means is that I can offer you any fucking thing I want, even if it's completely illegal. It doesn't fucking matter. I can offer you whatever you want and you can accept whatever the fuck you want. And that's free will in law, right? So if I say, hey, I want to do a dungeon porn with you and I want to tie you up and beat the fuck out of you and give you $1 for it, and you understand the terms of the conditions and you understand the contract and you aren't drugged or anything like that when you sign the contract and you sign it completely of free will, we now have a legally binding contract. And if I go along with if I say I'm going to whip you with this amount of force this many times, and I describe the type of whip, and I describe how much leather it's made out of and how much it weighs and how long it is, and I go into excruciating detail, and I do every single thing that I say I'm going to do in that contract verbatim exactly, I'm not actually breaking the law. Because the thing is that the contract and your acceptance of it under no duress by my hand is senior to law. So even when you're not in the system, they can still offer you any contract they want. They can offer you contracts all day long. They can offer you absolutely anything they want. And all you have to do, it's so stupid to even say it, is just simply reject the contract. You just say no. Now, at that point, you can just say no. Because they know they don't have any jurisdiction. They know they don't have any right. They're offering you something they know they can't enforce because of your status. And now at that point, you can simply reject the contract.
Right on. Now, that's also a great segue into something else you teach about how to kill contracts and actually regain some of your time and money back. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, so for all of your listeners, I love talking about this because this always gets people really excited. For all your listeners that work on a job as an employee where there's taxes that are being withheld from their paycheck every single week or every 2 weeks, by the time you get to video 5 of my free course, I'm going to teach you how to fill out a W-8BEN form, and you can turn it in literally the same day or next day to your employer. And they by law have to take all of those taxes out and no longer withhold any of those taxes from your paycheck. So within just a few days of signing up for my course, I'll teach you how to do that. Okay. Now, contracts, there's multiple different contracts that you have to clean up that you have with Washington, D.C. that you aren't aware of, right? The driver's license is one of them. The passport system is another one. The W-9 forms in the IRS, that's another one. If you have a marriage license, that's another one. If you're in the military or have previously been in the military, that's another one. Certain types of licenses, like, for example, a concealed carry permit, that's actually a contract with Washington, D.C. Any sort of licenses, like, for example, licenses like an FFL license to sell certain types of firearms, or a hunting and fishing license, or anything like that at all whatsoever, all of those need to be either changed or eliminated, right? And once you clean up or change all of these various contracts, you're disconnecting from United States, which is the District of Columbia, more and more and more and more and more and more. And by the time you find all of them, which is the whole point of my course, we're trying to locate all of these things in your life and get rid of all of them individually. Once you get rid of all of them individually or change them, then you officially are a completely foreign entity, foreign government, foreign world from the District of Columbia, otherwise known as United States. The United States Code has absolutely nothing to do with you or your business. So you can operate completely outside of all emissions laws, all legal anything, the commissions, all the stuff that you see everywhere, all only applies to people who are within the exclusive jurisdiction of Washington, D.C. So when you remove all of those jurisdictional elements, you are now completely outside any of their rule systems. So you could manufacture cars and sell them, and there would be no EPA, there would be no emissions laws, there would be no safety laws, there would be absolutely nothing. It's as if you're operating in a complete bubble. And legally and lawfully, you have no contract with any of these agencies. So again, can they offer you a contract? Can they send you a bill that says you're a bad person because you violated EPA section blah, 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 blah? Yes, they can. But the thing is that you just simply write back and you say, hey, I'm not part of your jurisdiction. I'm not part of your little world. I'm not part of the District of Columbia. I'm operating completely unincorporated, completely outside of the system. And your offer to contract has been denied. And you just send it back. And the United States Code actually protects you in doing so. That's the part that's so funny. The United States Code literally explains that that's actually the way that it works. It's not even just some made up weird horse shit. It's actually covered clearly in the United States Code exactly how to do all of this, right? And that's why it's called a voluntary system. When you look in the tax code and you look in the Internal Revenue Code, they talk about how it's a voluntary system. It's based off of voluntary compliance. They don't tell you how or what that means, but everything that I'm explaining in this podcast is exactly what it means. You tell them that you're a U.S. citizen. You tell them that you live there. You report to the IRS all of your income. You break all of it down. You sign it all under penalty of perjury. You have an employee identification number, which is called a social security number. You put it on everything. It's considered in law very, very carefully and very, very, very evil. It's very, very evil. They consider the whole thing to be, we're not holding the gun to your head. We're not pressuring your hand. We're not doing anything. And actually the sad part about it is it's actually true. They aren't really pressuring anyone to do or say any of these things. Like, for example, on a driver's license, one of the little screens on the computer when you're doing your application or when you're getting a new driver's license, it literally says, are you a U.S. citizen? And there's a yes bubble and a no bubble. If you click yes or if you click no, it doesn't change anything. It changes nothing. There's no additional screens. There's no additional questions. It literally doesn't change a fucking thing. The only reason why the question's even there is to create the contract.
Right.
That's it. So all you literally all you do is just click no. It's that fucking simple to the point where I want to fucking cry. And the thing is that the system is built on psychological control, emotional control, and terminology. It's not, yes, the outskirts of the system contain military might and force and duress and threat. Yes. But the core structure of the system is a emotional, psychological, terminology based control system where people are proud to put on pieces of paper stating that they're United States citizens, U.S. citizens. Their dick gets hard clicking the yes bubble. That's the whole system. That's the crux. That's the center core aspect of the entire system. It's this pride versus shame, emotional control system that's built into the school systems and built into our terminology, where people don't ever ask or wonder what the definitions of these words or terms really are, because they assume they already know what all of it means.
Right.
And it's so thoroughly assumed that the idea that a person wouldn't know what United States is or what United States citizen is laughable. They laugh at you, right? So it's depressing because it's so easy and simple to get out of all this, and really the core element, the part that's so important, is just being very, very keen on when you see one word and it's capitalized, but it wasn't capitalized a minute ago. So what you're looking at now is you're looking at two completely different words that have two completely different definitions. They capitalized the motherfucking thing for a reason. It's an entirely different word now. Now you have to say, okay, the word state wasn't capitalized here, but it is capitalized here. And now it's like, well, what the fuck? Which one of these means which, and which definition for which is which, right?
Yeah.
So you start diving into all of this, and all the different sections in the United States Code has a definition sections, right? So when you're looking at the United States Code, like for example, the one we saw earlier, it was called definitions. Every single part of the code has a definition section, right? Yeah. Some of those definition sections have definitions for word that would blow your fucking mind. Like, for example, I don't have it here right in front of me, but if you look up, there was one I was looking at the other day where it was under the section who can have a social security card or who can have a social security number. I forget, it's like CFR 402.12 something something. I forget exactly what it was. But if you look at it, they have a special definition for the term you, Y-O-U. And when you go and clear up the definition of the word you that they're using in that section, the definition of the word you means anyone, basically anyone who owes a debt to the United States. So they create these secret definitions, and they use secret definitions in these various statutes. And if you don't have the secret definitions, you can't understand what the statutes are saying. When you locate all the secret definitions and you plug them into the statute, that's the only way that you can figure out what the contract actually is. You can't actually find out what the contract is until you plug in these missing elements. And that's why the whole world's so fucked up, because they've created all of these secret definitions and they litter them around, like the definition of the word you, Y-O-U, or the definition of the word person, which is another one that I get into a lot in the course, right? Or the definition of the term United States, or the definition of the word citizen. And I can go on and on and on and on and on. Right. And so you're signing these things, assuming you know the contract, but the contract is something completely different than what you think it is. And then now you have 320 million people signing that same contract. You just add water, mix, and you get the shithole that we now have, which is called the United States of America. That's what it is.
Man, it is fucking insanity that you have to decode that shit. I'd love to get into how some of this information can help people not only facing legal ramifications, but may even already be in jail for tax evasion or things like that.
Yeah, so I don't know a ton about this, because obviously, like almost everything that I'm doing, I'm testing it on myself, right? But right. As far as I know, if you're trying to get someone out of jail or out of prison, there's two really good ways to do it. Okay, the first way is you write what's called a habeas corpus, right? A habeas corpus is basically just, hey, I didn't realize some things before. We need to look at some new information again, and I want to present myself into a courtroom or present someone else into a courtroom to reevaluate some things. It's basically like going up to bat again, essentially. I don't know tons and tons and tons about it. I just know that is the tool that you would use for something like that, right? Mm. And within the system, that's the completely standardized way of getting someone out of prison. Okay. The short version of it's called a HABE, right? A HABE, right? Habeas corpus, right? So you can look up that and how to write those, and you can write them for your friends and family. It's not going to be the easiest thing. You're not going to be able to do this like in tomorrow, but I'm just saying, like, if you want to go down that road and you want to get them out of prison, that's how you do it. Right. The second thing, and you can actually put this in your habeas corpus. The second thing that you can do is there's a penal bond. Okay. The penal bond is what holds the person in prison, right? And the bonds actually have bond numbers. So if you find the bond numbers, and these bonds become securities, and they actually trade the securities on private markets, right? And this is all, there's literally an entire system that they use. I forget the name of it, but you can type it in the internet. It's like a court system, blah, blah, blah. I forget. They're like wide open about it. This is not some secret fucking thing. Obviously, they don't want everybody knowing about it, but they're not hiding it necessarily either, right? They create these bonds, and then they sell them and trade them on private markets, okay? Now, if you can find the penal bond number and you can find the penal bond information, you can actually, in my course, I teach you about money, and I teach you about something called instruments, and I teach you about securities, and it's a super simple but also very, very deep understanding of how to you can actually manufacture currency yourself. You can just make it up out of thin air. It's legal. And I teach you how to in the course. Okay. You can actually discharge the penal bonds in many, 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 many different ways, but it's a legal process that you would do that. So the way that prison or jail actually works is the person's body is held as surety on the bond. So when you remove the bond, they can no longer hold the body as surety on the bond. So you discharge the bond, the guy can technically just walk right out of the prison and no one can stop them at that point. So those are the two ways. Now, have I done any of this? No, because I'm researching 900 different things all at the same time.
Yeah.
But I do know for sure, for a fact, 100%, these two things, the habeas corpus and the discharging of the bond, these are two ways that you can get absolutely anyone out of jail or prison for absolutely any crime. It doesn't matter what they did. And the reason why is because the courts are private for-profit corporations. And they actually, if you go on to Dun and Bradstreet, they have Dun and Bradstreet numbers. They have EIN number, tax numbers. They're actually private corporate courts that are actually little tiny little banks. And they create penal bonds and they hold people's body as surety on the bonds. But the court's entire function is the manufacturing and selling of bonds. A court is literally a bank by definition. A bank creates and sells bonds and trades bonds. Courts do the exact same thing.
You mentioned something that how we could possibly print our own currency. I'd like to get into the aspects of what we're looking at when we're actually talking about our modern money. What is money in our modern world? We're under the illusion that it's backed somehow by gold, but we know that, especially in this community, they're just printing out funny money. What is your understanding of what's going on here?
This is quite a bit more complicated. So a Federal Reserve note, okay, when you look at the definition of the word note in Black's Law, a note is basically evidence of a debt, which is the same. One of the things you have to realize is all this shit and all these different terms like security, bond, instrument, fucking, I could go on and on, stock, I could go on and on. All these words all basically essentially mean the same fucking thing. Okay. And the reason why there's so many different terms is to just make it seem confusing to where people don't want to fucking learn it. It's how do we make this thing to where people go, oh, fuck that, I don't want to look at that, and just look the other way. That's all it is. It's just a smoke screen.
Yeah.
Because when you start clearing all this shit up, the simplest fucking thing in the world, and it all means the same fucking thing, and it's all just smoke and mirrors and dog shit everywhere. Okay. So a note means evidences of a debt. Okay. So you say, okay, so a Federal Reserve note is evidence of a debt. Yes, it is. It's evidences of a debt that basically it's a note. It's actually a contract. So this little thing right here, I know your listeners won't be able to see it. I'm going to hold up a $20 Federal Reserve note. Okay. So on a $20 Federal Reserve note, what this is actually a contract. It's not money, because money by definition is only gold and silver coins. And that comes from Article 1, Section 10. It's in the US Code. It's in Title 12. It's all over the place. It's not some fucking secret thing. It's even defined very, very clearly in Black's Law. This is not money. What this is actually a note, which is why it's called a Federal Reserve note. They aren't even lying. That is what it is. It's a note. A note is not money. A note is a contract that evidences a debt. So this little contract that I have in my hand right now, which is a $20 bill, this little contract is basically a contract that states that the federal private for-profit corporation known as United States, which is also known as the District of Columbia or Washington, D.C., owes the foreign private for-profit corporation known as the Federal Reserve $20 in legal money at some point in the future. Does that make sense to you, or is that too complicated?
No, I got it. Yeah.
So what this is literally just a contract for future payment of debt. Now, you say to yourself, okay, so if this is a contract for future payment of debt and people are exchanging it around as if it has value, what's stopping me from doing and creating the exact same kinds of contracts and then transferring them to my friends and families and relatives and business partners? The answer to the question is absolutely nothing. There is absolutely no law. There is absolutely nothing anywhere. In fact, there are laws that state that if you create and manufacture notes or promises to pay, like no different than a Federal Reserve note, businesses and tax organizations like the IRS have to, by law, accept your note by law. So you can take a piece of paper and you can cook up a fucking note out of thin air. You can write on the note whatever fucking value you want, send it to them, and by fucking law, they have to accept it at the value you wrote on there. So I can cook up right now in 3 seconds with a pen and a piece of paper a $250,000 note. And I can sign it, and I can put a little letter on it and explain what it is and how they have to accept it. And I can write the codes on there. And I believe it's UCC 3-603 is the one.
Now, this would have to be accepted by any business?
It has to be accepted by any business that falls under the United States Code and the Uniform Commercial Code, which is 99.99% of everything, right? Now, when you fully privatize like what I've done and you go completely outside the system entirely and you disconnect all commercial activity from the system fully, now at that point, you no longer are forced to accept these notes. But that's literally, there's like probably a handful of us in the entire fucking country doing that, right? Obviously, everything that I'm doing is I'm trying to make this bigger and bigger and bigger, and I want everybody doing this.
Right. So
this is going to be more and more and more and more and more. But all your big boys, all your big, huge monster companies, oh God, for sure. They all operate under the United States Code and under the UCC. So all your hospital bills, your car payment, your mortgage, your credit cards, all that falls under the UCC. And so all you got to do is just learn how to create negotiable instruments, just like the Federal Reserve notes. And I teach you how to do that in my free course. You just cook them up, send them in. They have to discharge your account. And actually, it's so funny because when you look at the laws, if they reject your note, if you send in the note and they say, oh no, we don't accept that kind of note, the law also explains that when they reject your note, they still have to discharge your account as if they accepted it.
No shit.
They literally physically cannot reject your note. It's actually illegal. And if they reject your note, you can actually go after them for criminal penalties.
Man, I love this stuff. Before you head out, I'd love to get into a little bit more about what you're offering in your course. Let the audience know some of the aspects that they can get into, what they can expect from your course.
It's a lot. It's like 24 hours of video over 39 days. So it's a video a day for 39 days. And I give it away for free because I don't see America having a whole lot more time, man. I'm a little bit scared about my baby, my country. I got nice shit. I got a nice car. I got nice shit. I got a decent place to live. Like, I don't really give a fuck. Like, yeah, I believe in karma too. So it's just like, whatever, it'll just fucking work out. Right. For me, I'm more in the boat of like, we've all got to start digging. We've all got to start looking at this shit. We've all got to start getting curious about it. We've all got to start to really hammer into this shit, because if we don't, we're not going to have a country much longer. And the beauty about all this is you realize real fucking fast that what we live in now isn't America. And America is actually just sleeping beneath the surface. All the original unincorporated law is all 100% still active. It's even used in the corporate law system. Even the courts use a lot of the stuff. It's completely active. It's not even like dormant. It's not even like canceled. It's not deleted. It's all literally right there, just waiting for all of us Americans to pick it up and start using it. So the beauty is that the system is powering down and powering down. The original America is really the lights are starting to go out, and they're starting to go out, but the machine is still there. The beauty, the life is still there, and all we got to do is just plug into it, and boom, it's right there. You can access it instantly, and if enough of us start to access that, you're going to experience what America really is. And America, the essence of what America really is, not this corporate takeover horseshit thing, but the original true America is so fucking beautiful. It'll make you cry.
I love it.
And if enough of us learn about this shit and take advantage of it and use it and plug into it, we can reboot this system so fucking fast.
Hell yeah. Excellent information, man. I love this stuff. Before you head out, let everyone know where they can find you, your website, social media, all the good stuff you got.
Yeah, so it's onestupidfuck.com, and it's spelled O-N-E, so it's not the number, but O-N-E, stupidfuck.com. My Instagram and my YouTube and my Facebook and my LinkedIn and all that shit is all on the website. The links on the top of the page.
Excellent, man. Well, thank you so much, Brandon. This was fantastic, and I'd love to have you back on in the future. There's a lot more that we could be discussing.
Totally, man. I'd love to. Thank you so much, Chris. I appreciate that.
Hell yeah. Until next time, everyone, have an excellent evening. We will talk again tomorrow. We'll see y'all then.